Assalamu alaikum and hi viewers, this is Sajjad Hussain and you are watching my YouTube channel. I hope all of you are in the best of spirits. Today I'm going to discuss Poetics by Aristotle with you. Aristotle is said to be one of the most renowned scientists, philosophers, political and critical thinkers that the world has ever produced. Along with Plato, he is said to be the father of criticism and critical theory. There are very important details regarding his life, and these can be asked in MCQs in the exams. I'll provide you those details in the description of this video, and you can go through these. Mostly the students come around and inform me that to follow the details in the book is a Herculean task. It's very difficult for them to tackle this book, and they seem to be very much justified in their reservations. In fact, when they start criticism, this is the first book that they have to negotiate with, and they are quite new to this arena. So, criticism seems to be somewhat boring for them. And as far as this book is concerned, there is incoherence sometimes, there is lack of sequence, sometimes development of thought is not there, and these are the additional problems that the students have to encounter. That's why they find it a bit difficult to read. However, in this video I am going to give you the details how to make the reading of poetics easier and how to make it enjoyable for you. For the sake of simplicity, you can divide the book into three sections or three parts. In the first part, you can study the origin of the book and the famous world renowned theory of imitation or mimesis given by Aristotle. In the second part, you can study the theory of tragedy in detail, and in the third part, you can study that comparative study made by Aristotle between epic and tragedy, and it is not a detailed study. It has been done briefly by him, and you can study that. So this is how you can divide the entire book into three sections. Okay, in today's lecture, I'm going to discuss with you the first section. The origin of the book is very important because it is the start of criticism, it is the start of critical theory. Plato, who happens to be the teacher of Aristotle, wrote a book by the name The Republic. And in that book, he severely criticized poets and poetry. According to him, poets are vulgar creatures and they preach immorality, and poetry was said to be a pack of lies. It was said to be misleading, and it was said to be a plethora of lies by Plato. He was of the view that poets should not be allowed in an ideal republic. The reason for this was that, according to him, poets presented imitations. According to Plato, poetry was a work of imitation. In fact, it was double imitation. He was of the opinion that all mimetic arts are twice removed from reality because they are imitation of imitation. And he gave the example of a painting of a chair. He was of the opinion that the painter, while painting the chair, makes a copy of the chair that is made by the carpenter, and this carpenter has made this chair copying that ideal chair that is in eternity and no one has the exact knowledge of. Therefore, whatever is painted by the painter is double imitation, and as it is double imitation, it is twice removed from reality. And anything that is not real should not be allowed because it can corrupt the minds of the young people and it can make them indulge in the flights of imagination and fancy, and they would become weak and they would become effeminate and they will not have that valor and energy, that enthusiasm that is needed to win battles, to win fights. On these grounds, Plato banished all poets and he banned poetry in an ideal republic. However, these charges against poetry were answered by Aristotle, and he suggested that poetry is a work of imitation, and there's no doubt about it that it is double imitation. But the poet does not indulge himself in servile copying. He does not indulge himself in photographic copying or counterfeiting. In fact, when he copies anything, he puts his heart and soul into it. Therefore, poetry is not passive imitation, it is not mimicry, it is not servile copying, rather, it is a creative process, it is a work of creativity. And as it is a work of creativity, poetry tells us not what has been and what is, but it also show us the way forward. It tells us how things ought to be and how things should be. Therefore, poets should not be criticized. So Aristotle in this way happens to be the first defender of poetry. If Plato is said to be the first hater of poetry, Aristotle is the first defender of poetry. I hope this is clear. And he moves on to discuss this theory of imitation and says that all imitative arts, all works of imitation differ from one another because of three reasons. They can differ from one another either because of objects of imitation, or medium of imitation, or manner of imitation. And he has given examples. Let's discuss one by one what are objects of imitation and manner of imitation and medium of imitation. Objects of imitation, according to Aristotle, means men in action, the characters that are there in poetry. And he is of the view that in poetry, either characters better than average human beings are presented or worse than average human beings are shown. If they are presented better than average human beings, it becomes tragedy, and if they are presented worse than average human beings, it becomes comedy. As far as medium of imitation is concerned, Aristotle is of the view that medium is the source, medium is the means through which that work of imitation is done. We can take the example of poetry and painting. Both are imitative arts. In poetry, language and words are the source of imitation, are the medium of imitation, but in painting, the medium of imitation is colors. So this is how these two differ from each other. And the manner of imitation is the method in which different arts are imitated. And you can once again take the example of tragedy and compare it with epic. we find out that both are forms of poetry, but in tragedy, the manner of imitation is dramatic. It is presented on the stage, while in epic, the manner of imitation is narrative. It is narrated mostly. I hope now you have got a fair bit of idea what is Aristotle's theory of imitation, and how has he defined this term of imitation. Hopefully this first section that I have briefly discussed is clear to you. In the next lecture, inshallah, I'll discuss with you Aristotle's theory of tragedy. You can give me the feedback in the form of comments. Keep watching, keep following, take care of yourselves. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.